Well, hello, Dr. Rick. How are you?
I'm great, Myrna. How are you?
Good. It's so great to see you. I'm always
Thank you.
inspired by the wall behind you.
Thank
So
you.
vibrant and filled with color. It's kind of like, get ready.
I like to have my spirit lion energy with me all the time. And yeah, that's what this room is for, is big work. So I like my big mural.
It's a real delight to
Thank you.
participate with you to learn more about story work, story healing,
Mhm.
and welcome to A Life Designed. I'm so happy to be referring clients that come into our community for coaching and then to share videos like the one we're shooting today, help people understand what is story work, what is story healing. So, why don't we start there? How did you get into this work and help people understand the work you do?
So I got into it after years and years as a college English teacher, as a consultant, as a retreat master, and as a pastor and community leader.
My goodness,
Yeah, I'm
you've
very
lived three
old.
lives.
Yes, I've done lots of things. And all there was a through line for me in all of those things, which was that the moment in which someone has their awakening of seeing,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, is this the thing that's been guiding this behavior, or is this the belief that's been guiding me to this particular pattern in my life? Or holy, wait a minute, who told me this? Where did this even come from? Whether it was in a classroom or in a retreat or in a workshop or in a company consulting gig or whatever else, when people can see the story, the belief, the pattern that has been guiding them, it doesn't have to be either good or bad, just when they can see it and when they can see it clearly. And then the next step, when they realize that they are not that story,
Oh.
then out of the awareness can come a sense of freedom. And so for me, story work is the process of doing the healing. And the healing is remembering who I really, really am, which is I'm not the story. I'm not the expectations. I'm not the template. I'm not the thing that everybody told me I had to be, whatever the response is. And then where do I want to go from here? Like, what do I want to do instead? What do I want to create and co create for myself and the universe about what I want my life to be?
Oh, that's so exciting. Well, to first identify the pattern, and I know in coaching, we hear about this, that usually precedes a conversation with a coach, and then they start asking around, like, hey, I don't have to do this anymore, or this has been working for me and now it's not.
Right.
What do I
Right.
do about that? Like, it's been good. It's not like it's been bad, but I'm over the job I'm
Mhm.
in, or the career I'm in, or the marriage I'm in, or
Mhm.
the place where I live, whatever it is. I'm over it somehow. But then who am I if I'm not that?
Absolutely. That's it. That's the whole game right there. And two, part of what happens is that sometimes people will show up and we'll work together and they think that the real question that you just identified, this isn't working for me anymore. And so they'll think that it's about that thing. It's almost never about that thing. It's about
Right.
some other larger context or some
Mhm,
other larger belief.
mhm,
And then we dig a little deeper and then we find out maybe what's really, really, really going on. I have a dear friend that I've known for years, and he and I started working together a year ago. I'm absolutely enjoying working with him. And he said, "Hey man, I've got it all. I've got it all figured out. Everything is great. Why am I miserable?" And I said,
yeah.
"Oh, oh boy, why are you miserable?"
Yes.
And we got to do story work and dig into finding out actually if everything is so great
Mhm,
and you're miserable,
mhm,
what's underneath that? For him, the story, the belief that he got to was, I have to be responsible for everything in the world.
mm,
When we dug into his family of origin, to his culture of origin, to his temperament, and to the choices that he had made from when he was a kid through his adolescence, through his, 20s and 30s. And
mhm,
he said, oh my gosh, the through line is, I feel like I have to be responsible for everything. Well, at that point, we could stop and say, is that true?
mhm.
Just hold on before we do anything. Nobody panic. Let's just stop there. Is that the truth? And so,
Mhm,
there's questions that I use to have somebody sort of test the story or the belief, like really
mhm,
see
mhm.
what what its effects have been. Does this work for you or not? And then we can go to, okay, well then, as you said a minute ago, well, if that's not the truth, if that's not who I am, who am I? And that's when it really gets exciting.
I think so many of us lock ourselves into patterns, especially if we've been married for a while and raised kids for a while and
Mhm.
haven't had a career that's paid our bills in the house we live in. There's been so much, history, that we don't stop and think, I chose this when I was 25.
Right.
I'm now 45.
Right.
Does it still make sense? We're just keep rolling through it.
Hmm.
And but sometimes life intervenes.
Hmm.
There's a
Hooray.
cancer diagnosis, there's a car accident, there's an unexpected death, or some really great thing happens. Money falls from the sky.
Hmm.
And so, how is it that that stock quintupled? And
Hmm.
out of the blue, I have this extra money. I never even thought I would have this extra money. What do I do with it? What does it mean for my life? Do I still want to keep working? You
Hmm.
know, how long have I been still happy, or am I still happy with what I'm doing? Life can just start prompting those questions that you just haven't been asking because things were fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can have a positive catalyst, you could have a negative catalyst, but these things show up from time to time just to check in that we still want what we have.
Mm.
Is this still working? And it's hard. I feel like sometimes we pull a Jenga block out of someone and they say, well, if I'm not this,
Hmm.
what does it mean for everything else? Like you've just disrupted my paradigm, my reality system. Wait a minute. I need the things to stop shaking and be still again.
Right.
What's crumbled? What's
Right.
going on? And the whole identity can be rocked. And so it's better if it doesn't feel like an earthquake, but sometimes that's not up to us.
I mean, whatever's needed, whatever's
Yes,
necessary. I
yes,
mean, the
yeah.
hero's journey begins with whatever disruption may be necessary to get our
Yeah.
attention.
This is when your friends give you all the books that say cancer's the best thing that ever happened to
Oh
me.
my gosh.
Or,
Oh my
they
gosh.
give you these things where people have this hindsight over
Hmm.
a similar trajectory that you're in the middle of. And in the middle of it, maybe that's not so good because you're not in
Right.
2020 hindsight place. You're
Mm-mm.
still working through the
Hmm.
trajectory part. But
Hmm.
there are times when having come out the other side, you realize I never would have made new choices if it hadn't been for fill in the blank.
Right.
And so I'm so happy that you do this work with people. How does it work to work with you?
So the first thing that would happen is somebody would contact me through my website or through email or through Life Design, and we would set up a discovery call. It's
Mhm.
free.
Oh,
It's
great.
20 minutes.
Oh, great.
And we would talk about what's happening for them, what's cooking for them. I'd
Hmm.
ask some key questions, and then they would say, so what would happen if we work together? And I'd talk about that a little bit.
Hmm.
We would also talk about whether this feels like it's a one session
Hmm.
question. If
Okay.
it's just, I got to decide between this and this, maybe that's just an hour, in which
Hmm.
case we get
Do
it
I
done.
stay or do I go? Hmm.
Yeah, right.
Hmm.
But for some people, if there is a larger question that they really want to dig into, for instance, I have a client who is dealing with a cancer journey, speaking of cancer, and she is in her 40s. And she said, you know what? When she first contacted me and in our discovery call, she said, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I was relying on that was really working, that was really making sense, and it's not now. And before I get well, I
Hmm.
want to look at what underneath my assumptions about myself and my
Hmm.
selfhood and my life,
Hmm.
what's under there that I need to reorder. I'm using
Ah,
this as an opportunity for
wow.
myself. And I just said,
Yeah.
great. So we chose to do a 4 session
Hmm.
package where we
Hmm.
laid out meeting once every 2 weeks while she's in a particular season. And
Sure.
then with some clients, we meet every 2 weeks or once every 3 weeks or once a month
Kind
for a
of
year.
ongoing until they're out the other side of whatever
Hmm.
it looks like. I know from COVID, it was like everybody had one of these catalysts worldwide. I mean, how
Mm,
often does that sort of happen? And people would say, when do we get back to normal?
right.
And there's the idea of, well, you're going to have to fashion a new normal because
Hmm.
there's no going back to the before times as I
Hmm.
described them.
Hmm.
So many people were disrupted about where they work, how they work, the kind of work they do. Did the business close down? Did it sell its office and now everybody's remote? Change, change, change. And the people around you are also involved in that change.
Yeah.
Everything is changing. And we sort of hug ourselves and go, well, it'll go back to what it was. But it doesn't go
Mm-mm.
back to what it was. So sometimes the good news is it's not going back. And sometimes that's the bad news. I'm sorry, honey, it's not going back. And so wherever you are coming out of your trajectory, you're not landing where you were.
Mm-mm.
That time is gone. And this
Mm-mm.
is now a new place that you get to fashion in a new way for what works for you now. And if you don't navigate change well, working with a coach like you to say, yeah, I get that you're feeling like that, but maybe think about it this way so
Mm-hmm.
people can navigate.
And so, to map onto that, when I meet with a client in an actual session, we do two things simultaneously. One
Mhm,
of the things that we do is, I check in and say, what are your intentions for today? What's cooking today? What do we need to look at today? And it might be that they really have a clear idea of today the question is, but
mhm,
it may be that they just say, I just want to be open to what comes.
mhm,
Great. We're going to trust that whatever comes will be right. And
mhm,
I trust that our intuition,
mhm,
our our souls, our hearts, our
mhm.
higher selves,
However,
whatever
you're
people,
entangled during the process.
mhm, whatever it is that needs to come up will come up. And so we meditate. I guide us through some quiet and some reflection to get really centered, and then I say, okay, ready, go, here we go.
Mhm,
And the whole time we are doing two things at the same time. One of which is to say, remember that you're not the story.
mhm,
Like you are not the story. You are you. And we practice. Are you an observer? Are
mhm,
you like, what do you want to affirm about yourself? And at the same time, we're doing detective work. We're doing archaeology work. We're digging.
mhm.
We're looking for clues about, is there a story, a belief, a pattern? Is there an assumption that you've been holding on to?
Mhm,
And then super gently, very compassionately, because nobody's to blame.
mhm.
Nobody's messed up. Nobody's done anything wrong. Everything that brought us to this moment is sacred. Everything that brought us to
Somehow
this moment,
served you to arrive here.
absolutely, it's a
Mhm,
gift. And
mhm.
if you feel like you totally screwed it up until this moment, now we're in this moment and we get to say, okay, now what?
Mhm,
And so over time, then that when we identify not only what the former story has been, what the
mhm,
former belief has been, what the former pattern has been, we can also say, okay, so what do you want instead? And it can be something as simple as, rather than the belief, I'm responsible for everything in the whole world and it's all on me.
mhm,
What if we just tried? And I'll say, we could maybe, I mean, what if it's, I am only responsible for myself and my own wellness and wholeness? And,
What if
I
we
don't
limit
know. I'll
your
have to think about it.
portfolio to this? Just
Right. Exactly. We could just try this.
Mhm,
And then I'll suggest things like, I want you to go and like journal in response to that. Just write that new story or that new statement every day this week and just see what comes up. And whatever comes,
mhm,
if when you say it aloud to yourself or repeat it while you're walking or whatever, just to try it out, every time that comes, that you're doing that, whatever comes, whatever feeling you have, whatever's in your body, whatever your brain, however your brain responds and wants to self-correct and fix it,
mhm, mhm.
don't do anything. Just see, just observe, just
When
watch
you
what
watch it
happens.
try to snap back into its former shape, you can
Yep.
say, well, I can actually influence that.
Hmm.
You
Right.
know? What I
So
love
it's just
about,
practice.
yeah,
Yeah.
your coaching around this is they're learning a new life skill.
Right.
They're learning to be in witness and observer.
Hmm.
And when things happen in our world, we of course feel like it's happening to us. And so our response is sometimes, I don't like that happening. I don't want that to happen. But it can feel out of control or like it's not up to me. And so you're giving them skills to reorient and say, what
Absolutely.
part can you respond to that delivers you into a place that's where you want to be at, that's how you want to live? Or if you have no idea, you don't want this anymore, or it's gone,
Hmm.
and how do you choose something new? Do you find clients sometimes are like, I have no idea?
Oh,
Like,
not sometimes, almost always.
okay.
Including, what do you want now? And the response very often is, I just got here. I don't know
Why are
what I
you
want now.
asking me?
Right. What do I know? Which is so great because then they get to be in the process of co-creation and imagination and creating. And we start really, really slowly. It
Mhm,
can be really, really simple. One of my clients is woman who said, I have gone through all kinds of really, really hard things. I have struggled and suffered, and
Mhm.
I always think of myself as a survivor, and I don't want to be a survivor anymore.
Yeah.
That's not
How about
it.
a thriver?
I said, what do you want to be? And she said, oh, I don't know. I said, okay, we'll just sit with that. How about we're just gonna take the I'm a survivor and I'm so strong and these are my wounds and da 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 and just park that to the side.
Yes.
And then I basically tricked her and said, let's talk about your dogs. Let's talk about your animals. Let's talk about your work. Let's talk, and then sure
Mhm.
enough, her intuition came back around and
Mhm.
she 5 minutes later said, oh, wait, no, I know what it is. I want to simply celebrate all that I am.
Oh,
And I said, so you
yes.
see the difference between the former story,
Yeah.
I'm a survivor and I'm so
Yeah.
strong and I've suffered so much,
Yes.
and I'm simply celebrating all that I am. And she was like, what's happening? Right. I was like, you're doing it. You're doing it. You're doing it. You're doing it.
This is what this work looks like, and you're giving them permission to do this exploration and discovery
Mhm.
they didn't know they could do, they didn't know how to do. It's exciting to hear that this work is available for people by
Mhm.
working with you. And the new possibilities, it must be rewarding to invite people to do this kind of reorientation and discovery. I know too that sometimes when people feel like I'm staring at a blank piece of paper called my life and I have to
Mhm.
invent something else,
Mhm.
that the first thing or the second thing they land on isn't the thing they stay with.
Mhm.
It's the stepping stone to the thing. And so to say you don't have to solve it, the first story you write doesn't have to be an A+ story. It can
Right.
be the first story, and then you
Right.
get better as you write them. And
I
so
mean,
you like, oh, okay, I don't want this anymore, or it's somehow no longer available to me.
mhm.
I'm here now. I'll do this step. Oh, but now these other steps are open in my field of vision and they
Mhm.
weren't there before. Now
Right.
I have more choices and I know how to make the choice to explore those things.
That's exactly right. It's
They're working
exactly
with
right.
you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The thing that you just highlighted, which I really liked, is that this process gets to continue. Like I can get an awareness around this other new possibility for my story or this aspect of my selfhood.
Mhm.
And then I can edit that too. And I can play with that too. And I can
Yes.
change that too. Because one of my clients is a man who said, what I want to do is stop being so preoccupied with, and he filled in the blank. And I said, okay, well, okay, preoccupied with. Okay, fine.
Mhm.
Do you feel ashamed that you are preoccupied, to use your language? And he said, yeah, I'm screwing it up. And I said, okay, what if we just said that pattern has been a gift up till now?
Yes.
We stopped. He
Mhm.
kind of breathed, got a tear in his eye, and said, okay, okay. And I said, you don't have to have the new story yet.
Mhm.
Why don't you just say, you've been preoccupied, but actually that pattern has been a gift, but you get to create a different kind of gift. You get to create a different kind of pattern for yourself and just watch what happens. And then over the months, as we were working together, he began to see, oh, you know what my gift is? I'm stubborn. I'm good at bearing down on
When I
things.
lock something in, it stays locked in.
That's it. So he got to set, for him, it became a celebration of, rather than I'm just worried and preoccupied and torn up, it became I'm really good at focusing and I make things happen. And for him, then that opened up a whole possibility for him to think about his work life that he hadn't thought about before, just
Yeah.
by that reframing.
It's one of the things that we sometimes do is help them shift into the next gear.
Hmm.
So if you talk to someone who's come out of a violent relationship or who's coming out of, a cancer battle, and this idea of survivor kept them going through the trial and the tribulation they were in. But as you mentioned, then there's a time where you're not a survivor anymore.
Hmm.
You're not tying your identity with the battle, that now we're going to make peace. We're going to write a treaty with the rest of the world that the battle is
Right.
done
Right.
and make peace and move on peacefully into
Hmm.
the next kingdom, whatever that looks like for you.
Yep.
But the battle served you. It kept you going. It helped you find results. You weren't wrong to be in the battle, but the battle's over and
Yep.
declare a treaty.
Hmm.
So,
That's it. That's it.
Well, so you've told me how people find you. So is it
Hmm.
drrickdiamond.com?
Hmm.
And I'll make sure that in the bottom of the video that people know how to get a hold of you.
Great.
And you're also on Instagram because I know you sometimes make my day when I see your
Mm,
reels. How do
yeah,
they
that's
find
fun.
you on Instagram?
Dr. Rick Diamond. That's it. It's
Okay,
just
great.
Dr. Rick Diamond. And on YouTube as well. You can look for Rick Diamond's story work, but I think my handle is at Dr. Rick Diamond.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'll make sure that I have those links in there. Welcome to the Alive Design family. I have a
So
little
happy to be
roster in my
here.
head of who I need to refer you to. So
Great.
you're
Great,
doing
great, great, great,
beautiful
great.
work, and
Thank you.
it's wonderful to be working with you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
I'm so
much.
glad to be
Okay,
here. Okay.
check out Dr. Rick Diamond. Okay.